This woman was truly promiscuous, maintaining relationships with multiple lovers to satisfy her perverse desires. When she was discovered, she was already lying in her rented apartment. It was a real and significant criminal case, with twists and turns that made it difficult to solve without surveillance footage. You wouldn't have guessed the true culprit until the very end. The time was April 28, 2015, and the location was Shanwei, Guangdong. A female corpse was found in a rented apartment, decomposing and naked on the bed. There were no external injuries or bloodstains on the body. What caught the attention of the forensic team was the plastic wrap covering the victim's face. Based on this, the police deduced that the killer had used the plastic wrap as a barrier and then suffocated the victim by covering her nose and mouth with their hand or a pillow. This indicated that the murderer's method was extremely cruel, and the perpetrator must have been an acquaintance, either male or female, since a person would normally struggle fiercely when their airways are obstructed. Out of instinct for survival, one would thrash about desperately, but oddly enough, there were no signs of struggle or disarray at the scene. On the plastic wrap, the police found half a fingerprint, which did not belong to the deceased. Preliminary autopsy revealed that the victim was menstruating and showed no signs of sexual assault. The forensic examiner estimated the time of death to be around 30 hours prior, placing it between the night of April 27 and the early morning of April 28, 2015. Upon further investigation, the police noticed that some of the victim's valuables, jewelry, and mobile phone were missing. This led the investigators to initially suspect that the murder was motivated by robbery. The investigators also found several items belonging to a man at the scene, including a pair of men's slippers and an ashtray. According to the landlord, the deceased was named Hong Xiaojun, a 38-year-old migrant worker from Sichuan who worked at an entertainment venue. An informant revealed that the victim had a complicated social life and frequently brought men back to her apartment overnight. The crime took place in an old neighborhood in the center of Shanwei, where most of the apartments above the second floor were rented out due to low rent, and the area was populated mainly by migrant workers, making it a diverse and mixed community. Her co-workers from the entertainment venue, mostly women, also lived in the same area. The landlord, who reported the incident, said that one of Hong's colleagues came to him after noticing something was amiss and asked him to open the door. Since there were no signs of forced entry, the investigators concluded that the killer was likely a friend or an acquaintance. Given that the victim often brought men home, the police speculated that the murder could have been a crime of passion combined with robbery. After a thorough autopsy, it was confirmed that Hong Xiaojun died from asphyxiation due to strangulation. The plastic wrap found on the face was used by the killer to confuse the investigators. Although there were no signs of poisoning, traces of methamphetamine were found in the victim's urine, indicating that she had consumed the drug before her death. The presence of methamphetamine added another layer of complexity to the case, which usually revolves around money, love, or revenge. However, one thing was certain: the killer was someone familiar to Hong Xiaojun. To uncover the truth, the investigators conducted undercover inquiries at the entertainment venue where Hong worked, hoping to gather more information. An informant mentioned that Hong was not only attractive but also articulate, and during her time at the venue, she had relationships with many men, including some who used drugs. She quickly rose to become a supervisor, but her main flaw was her extreme frugality. She was known to be very tight with money, almost to the point of never spending it. During the investigation, the detectives learned that Hong had recently started a relationship with a new boyfriend, Zhang Hai. Notably, Zhang was also a drug user, and they had become a couple just over a month before the incident. Considering that Hong had consumed methamphetamine, the investigators hypothesized that Zhang and Hong might have taken the drug together, leading to hallucinations and ultimately resulting in Zhang brutally strangling Hong to death. However, when the investigators traced Zhang's movements on the day of the crime, they found that he was out of town on a business trip and thus had no opportunity to commit the murder. Just as they were ruling out Zhang, a colleague of Hong provided a crucial clue, saying that on the evening of April 27, Hong had come to his house to play mahjong. Around 8 p.m., she received a phone call and left in a hurry. The tone of the conversation suggested that the caller was a man and had a close relationship with Hong. The colleague also stated that Hong could not have been killed in the early part of the night because they spoke again later, and she was still alive. The question then became, who called Hong at 8 p.m.? Was it the same person who invited her to the apartment and then murdered her? Clearly, this phone call became a critical piece of evidence. The investigators promptly obtained Hong's call records, which showed that she had received calls from over 10 different numbers between 7 p.m. and 3 a.m. on the day of the incident. After analyzing the records, they identified two suspicious numbers. One, starting with 135, was the number that called Hong around 8 p.m., asking her to stop playing mahjong and meet up. Further analysis revealed that the communication between these two was regular and never occurred at other times. The other suspicious number, beginning with 138, was registered in Chongqing. This number was the one that contacted Hong most frequently and, importantly, it was the last number she spoke to before her death. By analyzing the timing of the calls, the investigators inferred that both individuals were well aware of the victim's routine, as they typically called her around 2 or 3 a.m., which coincided with her work schedule. The owner of the 138 number was quickly identified as a major suspect and investigated. The investigation revealed that the 138 number belonged to Yi Fei, a 40-year-old local from Chongqing. It turned out that the phone number Hong was using was purchased by Yi under his own name. On the third day after the incident, Hong's sister arrived in Shanwei after being notified by the police. She informed them that her sister had been married once, with a husband who farmed at home and a child over 10 years old. Due to Hong's frequent travel for work, the marriage had ended in divorce. She only knew that her sister was seeing a boyfriend in Shanwei. When shown pictures of Zhang and Yi, the sister pointed to Yi, identifying him as her sister's boyfriend. It was revealed that Hong and Yi had been living together for over 2 years and were even discussing marriage. To be with Hong, Yi had divorced his wife. The sister described Yi as steady and honest, working on fishing boats. She mentioned that Yi had called her when he heard about the tragedy, claiming he was in Chongqing taking care of his hospitalized father and would rush to Shanwei as soon as possible. The investigators were puzzled as to why none of Hong's co-workers had mentioned Yi if they were planning to get married. It turned out that, to her co-workers, Yi was just one of many boyfriends, and as a man with neither money nor property, he was merely a passing figure in Hong's eyes. Moreover, since Yi had returned to Chongqing months before the incident, her co-workers and friends ruled him out as a suspect. The talk of marriage seemed to be Yi's wishful thinking. After Yi returned to Chongqing, Hong had taken on a new boyfriend, and given that Yi had nothing to offer, he was certainly not the type of person the money-obsessed Hong would marry. Interviews with the landlord and neighbors confirmed that Yi had indeed returned to his hometown, and everyone who knew him could attest that he had left Shanwei for Chongqing over a month ago. Police checks of train and flight records showed no evidence of Yi returning to Shanwei, and medical staff at the hospital confirmed that Yi was with his father during those days, leading the police to temporarily rule him out as a suspect. Meanwhile, Hong's new boyfriend, Zhang Hai, was out of town on a business trip at the time of the murder and lacked the opportunity to commit the crime. With two suspects cleared, the police focused their investigation on the 135 number, which had called Hong at 8 p.m., interrupting her mahjong game. Upon verification, the 135 number belonged to Mu Lin, a 65-year-old seafood wholesaler in Shanwei with substantial financial means, who had recently become close to Hong. Colleagues and friends mentioned that shortly before the incident, Hong had borrowed 60,000 yuan from Mu, who had been pressing her for repayment. If the claims were accurate, Mu had both motive and opportunity, as he was the one who called Hong at 8 p.m., asking her to leave the mahjong game and meet him. Importantly, the investigators reviewed surveillance footage near Hong's residence, and the figure in the video resembled Mu. More critically, a footprint at the crime scene matched Mu's, confirming that he had visited Hong's apartment and had the opportunity to commit the murder. Soon, Mu was brought in for questioning. Under interrogation, Mu appeared very nervous, showing the expected panic of a suspect. When confronted with the evidence, Mu could no longer maintain his composure, realizing that silence would only make things worse. He admitted that he had called Hong that night for a sexual encounter, but she had refused because she was menstruating. While he acknowledged visiting the apartment, he denied killing her. They spent some time in the apartment before he left. Mu claimed that he had a phone call with a client after leaving, and he had not admitted to the meeting with Hong for fear that his wife would find out. The investigators verified that Mu had indeed returned home by 10 p.m. and had not gone anywhere else, leading them to clear him of suspicion. Just as the police thought they had a breakthrough with Mu, the situation took another unexpected turn. All three suspects were cleared, and the case hit a dead end. In an effort to resolve the case, the police expanded their search and reviewed all surveillance footage around Hong's residence. In a surveillance video less than 200 meters from the apartment, the police spotted a figure, but the image was too blurry to identify. Knowing that the killer must have left some trace, the investigators conducted a thorough search of the surrounding surveillance footage, focusing on people entering and exiting internet cafes, hotels, and bathhouses during the early morning hours. A significant lead emerged from the check-in records of a hotel, where a man named Yi Fei had stayed on the day of the incident. The investigators were intrigued. If Yi was in Shanwei, why didn't he stay at Hong's apartment and instead booked a room elsewhere? This suggested that Yi had a specific purpose for his return. The police quickly obtained the hotel's surveillance footage, which showed that Yi left the hotel around 2 a.m. on the night of the incident, returned 10 minutes later, and went out again around 4 a.m., coming back at 5 a.m. He checked out the next morning at 7 a.m., having changed his clothes. Comparing the footage, the figure seen near Hong's apartment closely matched Yi's build. This led the investigators to strongly suspect Yi. The investigators swiftly traveled to Chongqing and apprehended Yi. Without any coercion, Yi confessed to the murder. It turned out that Hong and Yi had met by chance in 2013 and quickly developed a romantic relationship. During their cohabitation, Yi gave all his savings to Hong. One hot summer, Hong introduced Yi to methamphetamine, and they began to spend their days locked in the apartment, using the drug. Once addicted, the previously honest and simple Yi became engrossed in gambling and stopped working. Soon, his savings were depleted. As a result, Hong, who valued money, grew distant and often quarreled with him. To please her, Yi returned to his hometown, sold everything valuable, and came back to Hong with the money. This time, Hong was happy and took him to meet her family, leading Yi to believe they would soon be married. However, when his father fell ill, Yi returned to Chongqing, and upon contacting Hong, he found her indifferent and even suggesting a breakup. Filled with resentment over the money he had spent, Yi took a long-distance bus back to Shanwei, hoping to reconcile. At around 2 a.m. on the night of the murder, Yi called Hong, but she rejected his request to meet. Seeing lights on in her apartment, Yi realized she had company and waited outside before returning to the hotel. At 4 a.m., he went back to her apartment, knocked forcefully, and Hong had to let him in. Inside, she warned him not to cause trouble, mentioning that she knew many influential people in the area. This enraged Yi, and he strangled her until she was dead. In a fit of disgust, he covered her face with plastic wrap. Yi had originally come to Guangdong to improve his family's circumstances, but he ended up neglecting his family and getting involved with drugs. Despite knowing that Hong was with him for his money, he continued down a destructive path. The story serves as a caution against the use of methamphetamine.